Live passes, they'll be fine. I work with Josh Grzard, their new offensive coordinator, bright young coach. I don't think these are ideal situations, but they'll overcome them.
And in truth, something of a loaded question, asking if they're going to take a step back. The 41 touchdowns for which Mayfield threw last season, only Joe Burrow had more in the NFL. In Dallas, no update to the soap opera when it comes to a long-term extension for Micah Parsons, but Joe Buck and Troy Aikman addressed that during last night's Monday Night Football telecast.
The other side is, if you're Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, how do you try to win or be great without Micah Parsons?
Well, you can't be. That's his leverage. His leverage is they can't win without him. Certainly worth every penny that he's ultimately going to get paid. The longer it goes, the more money he's going to make. So I wouldn't stress too much if I was him, but that essentially is the only leverage. Now, what are the Cowboys going to do? Do you think I know the answer to that? I don't think anybody knows what Jerry's ever going to do.
Adam Schefter, this morning on Sportsmanlike Radio, you used the term divorce when talking about Micah Parsons and Jerry Jones and Dallas. Eyebrows were raised, blood pressure was raised. What did you mean by that?
Well, Phil, essentially the two sides have not had any contract negotiations since late March or early April. It certainly sounds like the Cowboys are disappointed in Micah. It sounds like Micah is disappointed with the Cowboys. And Micah's request to be traded, which he put out on social media a few weeks ago, spoke for itself. He laid it all out. Since then, you would have thought that Dallas would have gone to him to try to appease him to do a deal. Instead, all we heard about was Jerry saying he doesn't know if Micah will play in the opener due to his back tightness, and there's been zero contract discussion since then. And I want to correct Troy Aikman there, the rare occasion that I will ever have the opportunity to do that. He was talking about the leverage that Micah would have. The leverage that Micah has is withholding his services, is saying that his back is tight all year long and not playing in the opener and not playing beyond that. And then after this year, then they would be in a situation where the Cowboys aren't going to let Micah walk. They would use the franchise tag on him. And if it continues to be the way it has been this summer and this offseason, you would think the two sides would look to divorce at that point in time. Now, there's time that the two sides can still salvage it before the regular season begins 2 weeks from Thursday night. But up until now, there has been zero indication that that will happen. If they change their minds, sure, they can get something done. But it certainly doesn't feel that way, and it certainly feels a lot different than the way it did with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb when they got their deals done at a similar time last year.
That is a huge window of time. We're talking franchise tag 2026, and we're talking first game of the NFL season in 16 days. Longtime GM Mike Tannenbaum, what do you make of the state of the marital union in North Texas?
Well, look, it's bumpy right now, but we have 36 years of data, which is Jerry Jones, outside of Herschel Walker, doesn't like to move on from stars. So I think, listen, Adam knows what's going on better than anybody, but to me, the most likely outcome is nothing happens, meaning no extension, no trade, and then we just have to wait and see what Micah Parsons does, meaning does he pull a Jalen Ramsey and hold in, which is what happened in Jacksonville where he eventually forces a trade. I just think we're weeks, if not months away, because I think Dallas would be extraordinarily patient if Micah Parsons withholds services.
Well, Mike, who is Micah Parsons' agent?
David Mulugheta.
Who is Jalen Ramsey's agent?
David Mulugheta.
Yeah, same agent. That's interesting how that happens. And again, there is a lot of time for this to play out. But the way it's tracking, I think it's safe to say that it doesn't look like these two sides are going to be reaching agreement on a deal anytime soon, if at all. And right now, yes, things can change, but there's been zero dialogue, not some, zero. And that tells you that Dallas right now, again, is not moving in that direction. Mike is not happy. We heard his trade request. And I think that these two sides will be dealing with it all season before the franchise tag and a potential trade come into play next year. That's if they even get to that point.
Something that's not up for debate. This is an elite, extremely important player. 13 games last season, even with Parsons. Dallas needs him.
Welcome to NFL Live, and we start where else with the owner who just won't stop talking. Here's Jerry Jones on Michael Irvin's podcast talking about what else? Micah Parsons.
We wanted to send the details to the agent. The agents told us to stick it up our
Okay, now we should make a note here. Our Ryan Clark touched base with Micah's agent, David Mulligetta, yesterday, and he was told no such comment was ever made. Meanwhile, Micah scrubbed all Cowboys references from his social media pages, listing TBD as the first thing on his Instagram and X profiles. And Jera, he was not done, joining Stephen A. Smith on his podcast that was released today. Take a listen.
in the spirit of not doing the old mother-dad deal. How many times have you seen the little rascal so clever go in there and mama told him, you're not going to get it. And goes in to daddy, who only sees him after 5 in the afternoon, wants to love him, and says, you can have it, son. You can have that before dinner. And he goes back in and says, Mama, Daddy said I could have it. That's the old mom, dad, been around since the beginning of time. I'm not going to go for that here. That's what's happening.
You're not going for it?
I'm not going for it. There's right now about 3 entities involved in the Micah Parsons deal that really count, and that's not to dismiss everything about the organization and the Cowboys.
What are the 3 entities?
Micah, me, sitting out there, and about a mile back is that agent.
Whoa! Here's Bill Barnwell, Sam Acho, Jeremy Fowler, and Courtney Cronin. We had to bring in a huge group to talk about this. So, I guess Jerry doesn't see the need for an agent, Courtney.
This whole mama-daddy analogy, and there's a child stuck in the middle of that being Micah Parsons. I would just like to know where the adult in the room is.
Do you think the child is Micah, or maybe it's Jerry?
I think the child is Micah because he's caught in the middle between the owner of the team, the guy who signs his check, and his agent, who he is collectively bargained and allowed to have as his representation. And the way that I see this, and the more that you listen to Jerry and the conversations that have apparently taken place about the two of them meeting, Jerry giving him a figure, saying he's going to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. He doesn't do this for everybody. Respectfully, he's not doing it for the right guard. He's not doing it for the number 2 receiver. Micah Parsons is in his 1%. And Jerry views that as this is rare territory. When it's rare territory, I'm the one stepping in and I'm the one negotiating directly with the player. And I think Michael looks at that and says, respectfully, I employ David Mulligetta, the most powerful agent in the NFL. That is who I want to do my business. And Jerry's offended by that. There's a lot of ego involved here, and he's poking the bear with a player who has stood on business before. Let's not forget, Micah Parsons sat out his senior season at Penn State to prepare for the NFL draft during COVID, and now he's strong-arming him and pushing him in that direction even further, it seems.
Maybe he's met his match, Bill.
Yeah, Courtney, the word ego certainly comes to mind. I feel that is the understatement of the year. There's a lot of egos involved in this discussion between those 3 parties. Micah Parsons is the latest in a series of Cowboys players Jerry Jones has waited to pay. He waited to pay Dak Prescott not once but twice. Waited to pay CeeDee Lamb until his 4th season, in their 5th season in the NFL. Waited to pay now Micah Parsons into year 5. If he had got these deals done as early as possible, after their 3rd season in the NFL, they would have saved about $82 million, maybe even more depending on where this Micah Parsons deal ends up coming in. And for that, he's gotten maybe a couple more appearances on NFL Live and the various ESPN programming. Jerry Jones is the most expensive piece of advertising this network has, and that is not to the Cowboys' credit. They need to get this deal done. The price is going to be what we expect. This is just a waste of time from Jerry Jones's perspective.
I actually disagree. I don't think it's a waste of time. I don't see this situation ending well for Micah Parsons or Jerry Jones. Really, Micah Parsons ending up as a Dallas Cowboy this season. The reason why is this: Jerry Jones is one of the most stubborn, hard-headed individuals that I have ever met. I met him. I got a chance to negotiate collective bargaining agreements with him back in 2020 when there was a new deal. David Mulligetta is also a very confident individual. I've known David Mulligetta since college, right? I was being recruited by him. I've known him for 15 years, almost 2 decades. This is like one of those those situations where you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And for Jerry Jones to try and say that the agent, David Mulugheta, who's negotiated over $1 billion of contracts, is a mile back, is a definite slight. Here's the deal. Micah Parsons is a pro at rushing the quarterback, at playing football. He may not be a pro at negotiating contracts. So he has employed an expert to negotiate his contract. So to try and extradite that expert from the conversation, I think is a mistake on Jerry Jones's part. I think that Jerry Jones has met his match, and it looks not very likely that Micah Parsons is going to continue this season, at least as a Cowboy.
The market has been set, as we can see. At best, it just seems unprofessional to leave an agent out of the equation. Meanwhile, he has asked for a trade. Any chance of that happening, Jeremy?
Yeah, Hannah, there is interest. I've checked with sources in Dallas. I was told multiple inquiries have come to the Cowboys about a potential trade for Micah Parsons. There would be several teams that would love to get a pass rusher like that with his age, production, premier player. I was told Dallas really doesn't have any plans on moving him unless it's some sort of just crazy, almost like a Herschel Walker type trade that they did 3 decades ago. It would take something like that. That's probably not coming. So reality will set in that they're going to have about 10 to 12 days before the season comes around to try to hash something out. I still, despite all this turmoil and everybody going through the playbook of how to create problems in negotiation, there is still time and optimism in Dallas that they can get something done in the next 10 to 12 days, possibly. But there are some feelings hurt there, so they would have a lot of ground.
And you remember the whole adult in the room thing. I have a lot of people asking, why isn't it the NFLPA? Why at this stage? To my understanding, the only way the NFLPA would get involved here is if Jerry Jones tried to go around Micah Parsons, tried to go circumvent the process and talk to a non-certified contract advisor, whether it be a lawyer, somebody that's not certified by the NFLPA. But it's interesting here when it comes to the other players, because obviously everybody around the league, players, are looking at Micah Parsons to see if he really is going to pull that card and he's going to sit out the opener against the Philadelphia Eagles, however long it takes. Because think about where the market was when Kirk Cousins in 2018 signs the fully guaranteed contract. First time we'd ever seen that in NFL history. What happened after that? The next quarterback in line didn't end up getting that same sort of deal. So people are wondering, can Micah actually get what he wants and then others follow suit? It could be a huge breakthrough for the rest of the league, especially his position, if he does stand on business in that respect and, truly not decide not to play in week 1.
Listen, if he decides to sit out, that's about $1.2 million fine per game, unless, of course, he's injured. I mean, that back starts hurting a little bit by carrying this burden. All right, coming up, some trade news this afternoon, as well as the Commander.
Browns approach this.
I would give each player a half. Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, let them go compete this weekend. They both look good, but they both were hurt. So it's been an odd situation because Joe Flacco, as Amalutu, didn't play it down, but he was the only one of the 4 quarterbacks that wasn't hurt. I was actually really encouraged by both Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders when they were out there against the Panthers and the Eagles. Look, Dylan Gabriel had the 2 turnovers in fairness here, but I thought they were both encouraging. Let them go and compete, and let them compete every week. That's how you're going to get the best out of both of them.
Yeah, Sanders was cleaner, but Gabriel had more yards per attempt, 7.9 for him as opposed to 6 even for Sanders. But these are the situations
Trey Hendrickson, and it's possible they could be without Trey Hendrickson for a while because the two sides continue to be in agreement on the length of a contract, on the average annual salary of the contract, but nowhere near close to an agreement on the guaranteed money in the contract. That is the issue right now. It continues to be the hang-up in any discussions and negotiations. And so Trey Hendrickson has been open about the fact that he is not going to play this season on his existing contract. Mike Brown has said he doesn't expect Trey Hendrickson to play this season on his existing contract. The regular season opener is about 2.5 weeks away. So if they can't get a deal done, and they haven't made any progress so far, what does Trey Hendrickson then wind up doing? He's adamant he won't play, and if he won't play, then this defense will have to get by without him somehow.
Earlier we talked about RC's tweet from yesterday, Phil, about, Trey Hendrickson's going to get paid before the end of the game. If I'm the Bengals, I bent a little bit on Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. He's led the NFL in sacks over the last 2 years. With Trey Hendrickson, you have a meaningful chance to have a great year. Without him, we saw what happened last night. I just can't imagine how they're going to be functional on defense without him.
Led the NFL in sacks, and it's not like this is a team like the Broncos where you have multiple 10-sack guys. Hendrickson himself accounted for 49% of the Bengals sacks last season. Coming up, Brian